We're taking a little bit of a pause from the episode that the Investing Mastermind podcast was going to post this week because of a timely market update, in that there's been a lot of hype about certain tech stocks potentially doing an initial public offering, also known as IPO. And Sina and Michelle are going to talk about that today. You're listening to Investing Mastermind Podcast. I'm Michelle Markey.
And I'm Sina Lundholt.
So, given all the hype this week, there's actually one company that's set to IPO this Friday, June 12th, and that would be SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, about a lot of outer space dreams and the fantasy that you could live on Mars and rocket ships and all that fun that goes with these fantasies of outer space. And this company is trying to make some of that a reality by giving everyday investors the chance to invest in these fantastical dreams. So, just to give folks a little bit of a quick background on what IPO is all about. So, SpaceX was a private company, and now they want to raise some money by going public on a publicly exchanged market. And so they offer some shares for people in the public to be able to buy into this company as it transitions from private to public. So that's what a lot of people are talking about. How do we get in on this company? And Sina, what are your thoughts about SpaceX?
Oh, I have so many. I have so many thoughts about the Jetsons, people thinking about that it's going to be the Jetsons. So first of all, there's a lot of people on social media that are super excited right now and asking how can I get in on this IPO like before it actually is released to the public? Can I own shares? How do I do it? And people are asking, guys, you can't. I mean, you can't get in pre-IPO. It's only certain companies that are allowed to be a part of it at the IPO. And I know that like a company like ARK has been out and saying, "Oh, you can invest in ARK, and in that way, which is a ETF that you can invest in, and in that way be a part of sort of the IPO craze." It's like the gold rush. And it's crazy. It's just crazy what is going on these days. So, yes, it's a nice dream that at some point we're going to live on Mars, future generations down the road. It is amazing. But on that road, we are going to face potentially multiple crises in the world. Back in 1936, there was a terrible crisis where people could barely get food on the table. And I'm just thinking, okay, so if people in the future can't get food on the table, is something like SpaceX, a company like SpaceX, is that going to have the money to continue pursuing life on Mars? It's kind of utopia. And people are evaluating this business out into that future where it might never even appear. I just think it's absolutely crazy, and people are bonkers. It's greed big time. People are chasing that next big money rocket and being so greedy, and that's what all they think about is how can I earn money from this, because everybody's going to buy into it, so I'm going to buy into it. It's the greater fool theory, that there's some fool coming after you that's going to buy into this stock. It's ridiculous what is going on, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's
With the
incredible because the implied valuation of this company would be $1.77 trillion, dollars, which is a ton of money for a company that sends out rockets that periodically explode when they're launching them. And I know it costs a lot of money to probably operate a rocket company, but for a company that they're valuing right now before it were to go live at almost two times what, say, an established, respected company like Berkshire Hathaway is valued at, which is around 1 trillion. It's just breathtaking how much this is just fantasy. Like, it's pure fantasy that SpaceX is trying to command such a high valuation. And people could be falling for it because, someone like Elon Musk is very charismatic. He sells these dreams to people, and people are eating it up because everybody likes a good story. And it just seems like a little bit hard to believe. But one way that everyday people could get into the mix if you really want to do this, and I like how you put it, Sina, of if you really want to get into it, this process is called requesting to buy some shares around the time of the IPO. And a company like Fidelity is letting people who have at least $2,000 in their retail brokerage account to be able to participate. So what you could do is you request some shares, and then the final allocation of what you get could depend on demand. And they might have certain methods of how they give you shares at some market price that you don't know what the final market price will be. And that is maybe how some people are trying to get into the SpaceX IPO in a like pre-IPO sort of way. But Sina, how did you put it of what that's like?
I get tired. I mean, it's genius from these companies. There's a similar platform in Denmark that does the same, where you can, it's sort of like pre-ordering a book, but except for this, when you pre-order a book, you do know what you're going to pay for it. And here, you don't know what you're going to pay, because all you do is you kind of put in, similar to a limit order, but it's a market order. And what that means is you don't know which price. You can kind of say, hey, I'm interested in buying shares. I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to put in my order right now. But unlike usually when you do pre-order things, usually when you do that with a limit order, you also decide at which price. But here you don't decide the price. You just say, once it IPOs at whatever market price I'm in. And like you're saying, we don't know anything about when are these shares going to be allocated to them. Is it the second it IPOs, or is it 30 seconds later? Because the price could be significantly different 30 seconds later. From all the crazy rumors that are going on, I believe it's going to be a steep upwards trend. It's going to be wild, because when are people going to pull the trigger and exit? That's what's going to be interesting here, where they're going to actually sell their shares again, because this is pure gambling. It's about, when are you going to get out? You're going to get in, but when are you going to get out? They're only entering to get out of these shares and earn a lot of money. And that's just where this becomes incredibly risky. It's like Russian roulette, but in the stock market, in the public market. So
And
it's not about owning a piece of a company. And
yeah, and even though you could look up probably when some of the original investors who invested during the private rounds, when they're allowed to sell their shares, because likely during the IPO, some of those private accredited investors are not allowed to just sell their shares right away on the first day of the IPO. There might be some rules that allow them to sell a little bit, but not everything all at once. So it's a little bit of a game of when are these initial investors who came in before you, when it was still private, when are those people going to cash out? Because those people will probably make a lot of money off, guess who? You. They're going to make money off of you because you're going to buy in as a retail investor on the IPO day or the day after or the days after that. And you're going to pay way more money than what these original investors paid. So it's sort of like a game of when these original investors are going to cash out. And then you're coming in and you're left holding the bag because you might pay way too much for these shares. And then that was just something that's going to be too bad. And then guess what? Most likely, the stock price is going to drop heavily in the days after, in the days and weeks after the IPO. There's going to be a lot of people left holding the bag.
yeah, we don't know when that's going to happen. It could be years and stuff like that. What is going on here is just so unhealthy. And this is a very unpopular opinion that we're also representing here. There's going to be people that's going to be very upset with us for just speaking up about this, because all they see, they're going to, oh, look at how much money I made on this. And you guys are just absolutely crazy talking about this. But it is honestly about also like the long term, what is going on in the public markets, and preserving kind of that doesn't become a casino. It's a marketplace. It's not supposed to be a casino. And that's just the casino that going crazy these days. And it happens from time to time with Anthropic coming out. We also discussed that. So secretly contacted the SEC in the beginning of June because Anthropic won an IPO, and Anthropic is the company, you probably know it if you've been using Claude, which is somewhat like ChatGPT. It's an AI chat box, and they're going to IPO. And rumor has it that it's going to be $1 trillion+ IPO, which is ridiculous. You mentioned earlier, Michelle, about Berkshire Hathaway, that, with SpaceX and comparing that to Berkshire. Now compare Claude, like one company, like it's got one one thing, and you compare that to Berkshire Hathaway, we talked about it earlier, where Berkshire, they have railroads, they have shoe companies where you can actually, you get shoes on your feet, parts companies for motorcycle and bikes and stuff like that. I mean, things you actually do need in your everyday life.
And car insurance.
Car insurances, like things you actually do need, or a chatbot, which is IPO'd at the same value as a business that's a conglomerate. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It's breathtaking. And it reminds
That's a good
me
word,
of the
breathtaking.
dot-com bubble, where a lot of high-tech companies like Yahoo, AOL, even Microsoft, they were being valued at such ridiculous valuations. And then guess what? The bubble popped. A lot of people lost money because they panicked and then sold. And some of those companies were not worth whatever valuation was given to them, like Yahoo or AOL. But some of them, like Microsoft, ended up being more legitimate. So you don't know, is Anthropic going to be like an AOL that does one thing? And AOL was all the rage once upon a time, where you could go on AOL Instant Messenger and you could browse the internet. That was really cool. I remember that as a young kid, but does it really deserve the valuation that it's being given? So it's possible that history could rhyme again, as we've heard that saying, where it might not be exactly the same, but like you said, Sina, I think Warren Buffett and even the late Charlie Munger, before he passed, have been remarking how in the last several years, the markets have become increasingly like a casino where people are just gambling. And this has been going on for years, like with meme stocks, like back with GameStop in 2021. So ever since the end of the pandemic times, the markets have just been on a nonstop rush to the top. And sometimes they crash and burn. I mean, I don't know how much more the markets can take this sort of departure from reality. It's like you're leaving Earth on a rocket and you're going into Neverland. You're going kaboom to the sky, and then you're leaving behind reality on Earth. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and we need to have an episode also on something like that with what is going on these days. But Peter Thiel, in his book Zero to One, he actually writes about the dot-com bubble, and where he says he don't think there was anything necessarily, as I understand what he's saying, and maybe I'm not understanding it right, but he's saying that bubble, that investors like us, we misunderstand that bubble because it turned out that some companies were actually worth what they thought back then in the 2000. Yeah, and some weren't. I mean, there
Hmm.
was 100% something going on he does write a little bit about that, but still, yes, there are 100% some companies that made the biggest change in people's lives, but there was also a ton of companies that really did not and did not continue after the dot-com bubble, but was totally erased. And that's exactly the same as we're seeing today. Yeah, there's most likely some companies that in the future are going to have that valuation that they have today, but there's 90% that does not deserve it, right? That's where it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and people have to ask themselves, if you are considering yourself a true investor, how can you value a company that's just IPOing, any company? Because even some of the best investors, like Warren Buffett, they stay away from IPO companies in general. It doesn't matter that it's SpaceX or Anthropic or even OpenAI, if they're also competing to IPO someday. Like, how do you value these companies? So you have to think about that if you're a serious investor.
Yeah, exactly. So do comment here. What do you think? You're welcome to comment with a perspective. Like, don't just say whatever we're saying is crazy. Like, come up with some good sound. It's interesting to also hear other perspectives. I know that this episode is going to go down and people are going to say this is stupid and they don't want to listen to this right now because there's so much adrenaline and there's so much gaming going on and people think this is how you need to invest. So I do understand that this is against popular opinion, but I do hope you were actually open to listening to some of the ideas we had here and some of the points of views that we presented here today because and I hope we did it in a way where it's actually understandable to people how crazy it is. I mean, greed can easily still take over. It's not like what we're saying here necessarily is going to change in the bigger greater scheme of things, but we hope that you out there that was listening to this episode are going to be like, yeah, do I want to be greedy, or do I want to actually, rule number one, don't lose my hard-earned money on gambling on something like this. There's other ways of investing in the stock market that are less greedy, but where you still are making good money and can sleep at night and don't participate in craziness like this where you are gambling with your money. And I just love what you're saying about flying to Mars. It's utopia, dear friends. It's like for generations to come, and the valuation, it's like utopia, the valuation of this company, as if we're going to go to Mars tomorrow when it is not. So
Yeah, exactly. Just remember, it's not like a theme park that you go to, like Six Flags or Disney, where you can ride their rides and you can even invest in those companies. It's not like that at all. It's not like regular people are going to go on a rocket ship tomorrow and go fly into space. So keep that in mind if
and
you
what came
think,
out of space
uh,
travel in the past? Teflon and Tempur, what's it called? The
oh,
mattresses.
Tempur-Pedic.
Yeah, Teflon, which, apparently we're not supposed to use anymore. It's like super
Hmm.
toxic, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, there might be spin-offs that comes out from space travel like we've seen in the past, but what else? Wow.
Well, good luck out there, guys. If you're going to be tempted by IPO or not, good luck to you. I hope everything works out for you, but don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Could be years down the line. I mean, there's definitely going to be some millionaires coming out of this, and congratulations if you're one of them. But yeah, it is 100% gambling in the casino. All right, Michelle, we are coming to an end of this episode, and we're going to be back in 2 weeks with the hopefully scheduled episode, unless something else is going to happen in the world. Then we actually might postpone it even further. But listen back for the next episode where we're going to talk more about Warren Buffett's conference.
Till next time.
If you enjoyed the show and found the content informational, we would be super grateful if you would leave us a review and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you automatically get new episodes in your feed.
The contents of the Investing Mastermind podcast are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. None of this is investing advice, and if you need help in your personal situation, please consult with a professional.